Okay, today's lesson is going to help you be able to differentiate between phrases and clauses that are either important and essential to the meaning of a sentence, or whether these phrases and clauses that you'll see on the next slide really just provide extra information to the sentence and therefore are going to require the use of commas. Now, I say phrases and clauses, and those might sound like too grammatical of terms. Really, the SAT and the ACT do not require that you can differentiate between the two. It's probably worthwhile knowing the difference. A clause simply just has a subject and a verb. But a phrase is just going to have one or the other. It isn't going to be something that we could call a complete sentence. You probably remember this from the independent clauses that we had in the compound sentences. But nonetheless, what you're seeing in rule number 4 on the screen right now are situations in which we're not using commas. If you just kind of look at the examples there, you'll see that they are punctuated without commas. Obviously, I have the parts of the sample sentences bolded, but I'm also highlighting them here because I want you to kind of think about what would happen if we did not have the words that we do within the sentence. What would happen if we said instead that boys must be good singers? Or if we made the statement, all poets are women. I think that if I asked you to consider, think about a poet. Give me the name of a poet. Most students will be able to think of, male poets as readily, maybe even more commonly than they are able to come up with female poet names. Students would say to me, oh, Edgar Allan Poe, Robert Frost, E.E. Cummings. Maybe the only female poet that students can readily identify is somebody like an Emily Dickinson. So it isn't fair to say that all poets are women, any more than it is fair to say that boys must be good singers. If we were in the regular classroom, I might ask, our male students, like, are you a good singer? Are you a good singer? And usually very few of my male students want to, be called on at all, let alone be asked if they're good singers. So really, it's not fair to say, it's not accurate to say that boys must be good singers. But if they were trying out for a play, if they were trying out for a musical, it probably is important for them to be good singers. So this phrase here, trying out for the play, is really important. It's what we would call like essential to the meaning of the sentence. It makes the sentence make sense. And without it, the sentence is changed. Without it being there, the meaning is changed. Just as if I were holding up a book, and it's accurate to say all poets whose works are in this book are women, that's fine. Okay, well, I have a book of women's poetry. But it's not accurate to say that all poets are women. So really your question wants to be or needs to be, does the sentence change its meaning if you take out the words? So your tip will be here to think about, is the meaning changed by taking out the word or words? If the meaning is changed by taking out the words, I'll write that here. If yes, then no commas. And, this is as important a skill, just like we saw with the simple sentences in the first batch of exercises, as important a skill to know where not to punctuate. Some of us get like sort of over enthusiastic about putting commas in. We go kamikaze, and it's as important to know where not to punctuate as it is to know when to use commas. There's enough times where we use them. We don't need to be over punctuating our writing with commas. So the next slide will show you where we do need commas, because this question is the meaning changed by taking out the words. Well, our answer to that will be no, that the meaning isn't changed. I'll show you how. So imagine that I'm holding up a postcard. I'm waving it around, and I'm telling you, well, this postcard is from Will. This postcard is from Will, and you can see the postcard in my hand. I can describe Melvin, who is raising his hand. Okay, well, we can see Melvin raising his hand. We can imagine a postcard from Will. And that's enough of a sentence. This postcard is from Will. Melvin raised his hand. We have a sentence that is complete in and of itself, or two sentences complete in and of themselves. However, if I want to tell you more information about Will, I want to tell you more information about Melvin, well, that's great. I mean, we are encouraged to write sentences that are more sophisticated, that sometimes do provide extra information to our reader. But when we do that, we do need to clarify that the information is extra. So if your words provide, I'll use this term because I think it's pretty clear, just kind of extra information, then you want to use a comma or commas to separate. Again, we're using commas to separate that extra info. So if I want to tell you, oh, well, who lives in Ohio? I want to tell you more information about Will. I could tell you, this postcard is from Will, who is my best friend. This postcard is from Will, who plays basketball. This postcard is from Will, who lives in Ohio. All extra information, but you still have the main sentence that tells you, whoops, I didn't mean to cross that out. I meant to highlight it, that the postcard is from Will. In the same way that I can give you more information to explain how or the kind of conditions under which Melvin raised his hand, not tentatively, not looking around him to see if others were raising theirs, but Melvin, comma, convinced of the answer, comma. I'm using commas to separate that extra information, and I'm just going to put commas around that extra information. So your task in the exercise that you complete today is going to be to identify when the words are providing extra information. In most cases in the exercise, they will be providing non-essential or extra information, and they will require commas. But you will have some conditions under which we have really essential information, like rule number 4, where we need that information to understand really which ones.